You are listening to KTHO Radio, the best of Tahoe history. Welcome. This is Dr. David Borges, a local chiropractic doctor and a Lake Tahoe historian. I've taught Tahoe history for the Lake Tahoe Historical Society, the local schools, service club since 1985. And I've also taught at Lake Tahoe Community College since 2006. And now I'm very fortunate for the opportunity to share Tahoe history with the KTHO Radio listeners. My approach to Tahoe history is interactive. I want you to be able to do things instead of just know things. And if you have any questions regarding Tahoe history, go to the KTHO website at kthoradio.com. That's kthoradio.com. And leave any question you have in the feedback link, and all questions will be answered. Today we're going to be discussing Tahoe geology. This program is specifically designed for the Tahoe local, those new to Tahoe, and for our Tahoe visitors. And we're going to be connecting time and places so you'll have a thorough understanding of the unfolding events to where we are today. But before we get started with the program, you know you're a Tahoe local if. You know you're a Tahoe local if you have switched from your heater to air conditioning back to your heater in your car all on the same day. Well, we're going to be covering tectonic plate theory, Sierra Nevada range development, and Tahoe's volcanic actions, and finish off with the glaciers that were here in Lake Tahoe. So what is the answer to the question? How was Tahoe formed? Well, Lake Tahoe is not formed by the collapse of a volcanic crater. That would be a caldera. An example of a caldera is Crater Lake in Oregon. Tahoe Basin was actually formed by a block fault drop and from shifting of the geological faults. The geological term for this is called a graben. Lake Tahoe is a graben, about 22 miles long and 12 miles wide. And then later on, the volcanic action sealed the north end of the lake, and then finally we had some glaciers that made Tahoe so beautiful. Let's go over some geological formation approximate numbers of years. About 200 million years ago, the Farallon tectonic plate was pushing eastward against the North America plate, diving underneath, and they call that subduction. In 75 million years ago, there was a final upthrust of the faults, creating the Carson and Crystal Range of the Sierra Nevadas. 25 million years ago, they had volcanic activity where Mount Pluto, where North Star Ski Resort is, that's on a volcano, and that volcano is Mount Pluto. 3 million years ago, the temperatures dropped in North America, creating some glaciers. And about 1 million years ago, the atmosphere warmed, and then creating the lateral moraines and Fallen Leaf Lake, Cascade Lake, and Emerald Bay, and many others. Well, the temperature lowered again, establishing some smaller glaciers, which created some of the beauty in Lake Tahoe. But how does that Earth crust move? Well, it moves through tectonic plates. And the theory is of 4 billion years ago, as Earth became a planet, it was a fiery molten rock, way too hot to sustain life at all. But it started to cool, and as it cooled, it formed a crust. And on this crust, there are shifting plates that are called tectonic plates. Well, the tectonic plate theory has some real good evidence behind it. Millions of years ago, there was all the tectonic plates were in one landmass on Earth, and it was called Pangaea, where North America and South America and Africa, India, and Antarctica, and Australia were all one landmass. Well, the geological evidence for that is that there are rocks that match on different continents. For example, in North America on the East Coast has the exact same rock combination as those in Europe on its West Coast. So it's as if those two rocks were together at one time. But there's also fossil evidence of tectonic plates. There are animals that cross over from South America and Africa. The fossils of millions of years ago are the exact same. And there are also some fossils of plants that cross from South America, Africa, Antarctica, India, and Australia. So there is some good evidence of the theory of tectonic plate shifting did occur. And we also know that the Pacific plate, which is basically the Pacific Ocean, is going northward across the North America tectonic plates, where the San Andreas Fault is. But as 250 million years ago, that Farallon plate was going from west to east, and it was subducting or going underneath the crust of the North America plate. And as it did so, it pushed the Sierra Nevadas together, the west coast of North America, and was crunching the west coast and causing an upthrust of the Sierra Nevada mountains. And that's what brought the mountains so high. But as the mountains were going up, there was a block fault about 22 miles long and 12 miles wide that just dropped. And over millions of years, the snow fell and the rains fell and filled up the lake, and it's now called Tahoe. Well, on the Nevada side of Lake Tahoe, the Sierra Nevada is called the Carson Range. And on the California side, going towards Sacramento, is called the Crystal Range. And between the Crystal Range and the Carson Range is that graben that fell down and filled up with water, is what we know as Lake Tahoe. Well, 2 million to 65 million years ago, we had the volcanic activity at the north end of the lake, and it sealed off the north end. It raised the water of Lake Tahoe. And to the point now where the water's only exit is out at Tahoe City. It goes from Tahoe City to Truckee, through downtown Reno, and all the way out to Pyramid Lake. And 3 million years ago, we had the glaciers, and you can see the broad-shaped U-shaped valleys of Emerald Bay, Fallen Leaf Lake, and Cascade Lake. And we have some geological remnants. We have the hot springs at North Shore, Brockway Hot Springs, Grover, Markletville Hot Springs, Carson City Hot Springs, David Wally's Hot Springs, Steamboat Hot Springs, and actually the University of Nevada, Reno is using its geothermal energy resources to become energy self-sufficient. Well, that's the end of this episode. We talked about plate tectonic theory, volcanic action, and the glaciers in Lake Tahoe. This has been the Best of Tahoe History. You're listening to KTHO Radio. I'm your host, Dr. David Borges. And please, if you have any questions on Tahoe history, go to kthoradio.com and leave any question you have in the feedback link. Future episodes, we're going to talk about John C. Fremont, the California Gold Rush, the Nevada Silver Rush, the Pony Express, and many other historical events where Tahoe was involved.